I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Romulus Board of Education to order, please. May I have roll call?
Mr. Kuderick?
Present.
Ms. Lanasi?
Present.
Ms. White?
Present.
Mr. McKibbage?
Present.
Mrs. Sprayer?
Present.
Ms. Buckley?
Here.
Ms. Roscoe here.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Carr, are there any changes in our agenda?
Yes, I would like you to delete item D, a presentation from the athletic department. We'll schedule that at a later date.
Okay, are there any other changes?
No.
May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of our previous meeting minutes.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the previous board meeting.
I'll support that.
Are there any questions on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Superintendent Carr.
Mr. Clark, personnel actions.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Members of the board, I have several personnel actions for you tonight. Our first one is for your information. Personnel recommendations with retirement. Mr. Alvin Dupree, a longtime night leader at Romulus Middle School, retired. His last day of work will be August 31st. And guidance counselor, a longtime counselor, I should say, Ms. Allie Mae Jackson, Romulus Senior High School, last day of work is June 18th, 2004. Our next for your information, personnel action. It's a resignation of Ms. Julie Nefsey. Ms. Nefsey is a child caregiver at Latchkey at the Burton Center. Last day worked is August 20th, 2004. And our final personnel recommendation, a motion by the board to accept employment of personnel as submitted. Mr. Timothy Jagger, physical education teacher, Alternative Middle Community High School, and Ms. Alana Roach, special education teacher at Romulus Middle School. Both effective date August 30th, 2004.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Okay, go ahead.
Supported. All in
April.
favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Ruth here, bills for payment.
Superintendent Carr, President Buckley, members of the board, we have for your review and approval this evening 4 registers totaling $1,077,721.97.
May I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the bills for payment. Support.
Are there any questions on the bills?
I just want to make a comment. We need this one company to change their name. Every time I see that Kansas State Bank, I think we're dealing with another bank.
You are, technically.
You know, but it's with the equipment. I keep thinking, you know, we're putting money in a Kansas bank, you know.
Well, just for your information, Compass Learning transferred any lease payments that were due them to Kansas State Bank, and that's why you're seeing that.
Okay. Because it seemed like we had them on there before.
They come up anytime there's a payment, but
Oh,
it's usually,
okay.
it's only a couple times a year.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Dolan, would you introduce our presentation for tonight?
Thank you, Joe. Members of the board, 3 years ago, all schools in the district initiated a process to disaggregate data to look at developing goals that would result in student achievement. Each school was unique in the data that they looked at. All our schools this school year, and we'll be talking about that at our next board meeting, all of our schools this school year have identified 3 goals which they will be working on for the next 2 years. The intent of these goals is to reduce or increase, if you will, academic achievement in all our students. One of the goals that the high school has identified through a year of self-study, through a year of looking at national programs, is student responsibility. Dan is here tonight with his team that has been critical in developing this program. The program will go into effect when the school year starts, and we're all excited about the possibilities. It's gone under review for a year. The staff has been very collaborative in developing a comprehensive program with some twist to it. And I think it has, like so many of the things we do in Romulus, I think it has potential to be a model program for the state and the nation. Dan?
Okay, thank you. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I hope it's everything you hope it to be before the year gets over.
Ask me in 4 years.
Okay. Mr. Foley would normally be here too, but his son had a knee surgery today, so he's with his son. But I do have a team with me. As Tom mentioned, we've gone through this outcomes accreditation process. It's a school improvement process. It's teacher-driven, and as he noted, that we have 3 goals. Our goals at the high school are reading, writing, and student responsibility. This was overwhelming by the staff. They selected these 3 areas. And in the process of doing this, you do a lot of research. You look for best practices. An example, for instance, in the reading, we're doing things with Johns Hopkins and team literature. In writing, we're doing something this year with the writing process and a 6+1, which we'll get into at another meeting. In the student responsibility piece, the staff, again, overwhelmingly selected this because they felt that students need to take more responsibility for what goes on in the building and what goes on in their daily lives in regards to increasing their own individual achievement. We also had a lot of input from students through student surveys. A particular survey that we did at the end of the year showed about 70% of the students felt that at some time over the course of the day, week, month, year, that they had distractions in their classes at times distracted from learning. They also would like to see something change. We have already did a presentation to a bunch of our leaders at Leadership Camp. Rhonda had gone up there this summer and presented to 50 kids, and it was well received. The staff, as Tom had noted, has gone through already a year intensively in a semester of this training, so we're prepared to institute it in the fall. The students are going to be brought on board the first week of school, plus in other mini sessions throughout the course of the first semester. The idea of the program, again, we looked at effective strategies research is based on a psychologist, William Glasser's approach to reality therapy, and the fact that all individuals have certain needs that they need to have met. And in our case here, with the idea of going through this, there are a lot of things that will change and a lot of things will not change. And what we're going to do today, if you notice, I don't know if you've got an agenda or not. Do they have an agenda? On the agenda, we'll start off, Rhonda's going to talk about some of the misconceptions that have gone with this theory. It's going to be followed by LaToya Shackelford, which is going to talk about the system itself and what we're going to be doing with it at the high school. That's going to be followed by Chuck Hughes, which runs the detention room. He's going to talk about what happens when students get to him. We'll end with a short DVD from Kelly Knight that shows a simulation of a student going through this process to see what happens. Now, that might sound lengthy. It is not. We did have an hour and 50-minute PowerPoint presentation, and with a little bit of encouraging, we left it at home, and this is about a 20-minute oral presentation. So it may not be as glittery as a PowerPoint, but it's going to be faster. So I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst. The responsibility system is designed after psychologist William Glasser and choice theory. And the motto for choice theory is that teachers have a right to teach and students have a right to learn. If students choose inappropriate classroom behavior, they will be guided and taught how to evaluate their own behavior and then develop a plan to improve. Choice theory, as effective as it may be in helping students manage their own learning and their own behavior, has some myths and some misconceptions, as does any new program that has not yet been implemented. Some of those myths, the most common myth about choice theory is that it's too time consuming. Teachers have to develop relationships with students. They go through specific questioning techniques when a student is choosing inappropriate behavior in a classroom. It does take some time, but choice theory is an investment. The time that you spend up front working with students, empowering students to make good decisions for themselves and for their school career will pay off in the end. That's misconception number one. Another myth is that students have too much control. Giving student choices, giving a student a choice, is giving them control. When in reality, it is empowering them to internalize their behavior and make better decisions for themselves. Choice theory differentiates between boss management and lead management. Boss managers tell people what they need to do. Lead managers guide and help people choose more appropriate decisions for themselves. And boss management is based on external motivation, rewards, punishment. Lead management is based on internal motivation. The more we can teach students to choose responsible behavior, the more they will. Another misconception of choice theory is that students will take advantage of their freedom and their choices. Okay? Just like lead management, if you guide students to choose, they will feel more empowered to make those choices and make better decisions for themselves. There is not a power struggle between a teacher and a student. It is questions: what do you want? What are you doing? What is what you're doing getting you what you want? And if not, we need to develop a plan to help you accomplish those goals. It's not a power struggle. And the last misconception is that choice theory will make all students responsible citizens. And as it will help students manage their own learning and behavior, it will not help all students manage their learning and behavior. And we do have a system in place on your flow chart in your packet that has interventions already in place for students who continue to choose inappropriate behavior. There's support staff that intervene as well as administration. Those are some of the common myths, as is any new program that has not been implemented. We wanted to start with that before we go into the nuts and bolts of the program. Latoya Shackelford will now discuss the classroom procedures and what the responsibility system will look like in the classroom.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get into the specifics, I would like to touch on a few things about the responsibility system, and I'd like to say that it is a systematic method used to help students understand that they are responsible for their own behavior. You'll hear that on, and we're going to echo that because it is crucial. One of the key concepts of choice theory is that all behavior is internally motivated, as was previously mentioned. Therefore, we cannot control anyone else's behavior, only our own. Consequently, the responsibility system does not rely on external controls to alter the behavior of others. Instead, it enlists the individual to be responsible for the development and implementation of her improved behavior choices. Coercion is considered ineffective because it renders short-term results and resentment. In the responsibility system, lead management is used to foster a cooperative environment where students know that teachers are there to work with them in their academic and social development. Now, in the responsibility system, students have the right to learn and teachers have the right to teach. In order to ensure that this happens, there is a intervention sequence, and you can follow along on page 6 in your packet. Starting with the first level. If a student exhibits inappropriate behavior in the classroom, the first level is to use nonverbal communication, such as getting eye contact with the student, or it could be something as simple as that, or it could be moving closer to the student, or even using one-on-one questioning. For example, a teacher may choose to say, "Are you doing what you need to be doing right now?" Something that's going to get that student's attention, and the goal at level 1 is to get the student to commit to making a change in their behavior. So we're looking at when you get eye contact with that student, then they need to give you some type of sign that they understand that, okay, you know, you're right, I'm not doing what I need to be doing right now, so if they can nod their heads back, or responding to the question, are you doing what you need to be doing right now? They need to, it's important that you're not, as a teacher, that you're not saying you're talking too much or you're doing this. We are encouraging that teachers have students think about their behavior and make their own judgments about what they're doing. If the student decides to not follow through with their commitment to change their behavior with the simple level 1 intervention, then level 2 is for the student to have or to be asked to create a behavior plan in the classroom. They will ideally be removed from, or will be asked to go to a separate part of the room. If space does not permit that to happen, then they may create their behavior plan at their seats. At that point, they will go through a list of questions, and you can find the behavior plan on page, it's in the back. It's near, yeah, it's towards the end.
Page 13.
Thank you, page 13. So they'll go through a series of questions to have them think about their behavior and evaluate whether or not they're making the appropriate choices, and it has them think about their long-term goals in order to motivate them to get back on track. If the plan is accepted, is considered acceptable by the teacher, then it's simply filed away and class moves on, or class continues. Class does not stop. Let me backtrack a little bit. Class does not stop when this process occurs. However, the student will continue on with the remainder of their time in class. Now, if the behavior plan is considered not acceptable, then the teacher will, in a calm, matter-of-fact way, simply ask the student to go to the student planning room for further reflection. It's important that the planning room is not viewed as punishment, but as a place where students have an opportunity to refocus on their short and long-term goals and consequently act in a manner that is in their best interest. Again, we are looking at having the student drive on their internal motivation. Okay? At this time, Chuck Hughes is going to come forward and discuss with you the next level of intervention.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Happy to be here tonight. Just quickly, before I get into explaining the planning room and my role in the planning room, I just wanted to give everybody a quick background on myself. I started in the district in 1981. I'm very proud to say I've been here for 24 years and pleased to be. And I got hired in by Tom Dolan back in 1981 in Beacon Day Treatment Program, and I was there for 8 years and ran their center program for 5 years before I came over to the high school. So that was one chapter of my life here in Romulus, and then I went over to the high school in 1989, and I worked in the intervention program there, and now it's a new chapter here, starting the planning room, so I'm excited about that. So I just wanted to let you know here that the planning room, we're having students are there for problem solving. It is a student responsibility-based problem solving. The message to the students is their choice to be in the planning room. Only they can make a better choice, and they are there to solve a problem and not there as a punishment. I am there to take a lead management approach with students, to be helpful, supportive, and non-judgmental. The planning room will be a quiet and positive place and used as an instructional process for discussing, evaluating, and planning. The message to students is problems can be solved, and they have to choose something different in order to solve it. Some example questions I would be asking is what they did to be removed from class, what rules were broken, is what you're doing working, is it getting you what you want, is it possible to get what you want? Do you want to be more successful in school? Is graduation important? What can you do to make your situation better? Questions like that. And then when we do the plan, students are to state in writing, what they will do and not what they won't do. For example, I will control my language and treat others with respect, as opposed to I will not use bad language in class. And the plans will be simple, small, specific, personal, positive, immediate, documented, evaluated, with follow-up, and revised if needed. The student needs to make a commitment to the plan. It's very important. And to start immediately when returning to class. The plan must be acceptable to the teacher. If not, the student will report back to the planning room for the following day and revise the plan. And then options when student continues to disregard a plan, hopefully that'll be few and far between. Well, they may be asked to see their counselor or administrator to have scheduled meetings with the students, or possibly the parent or guardian. I may contact the parent or guardian after repeated referrals, or possibly administration. Meet with the student and teacher and try to resolve some unresolved issues, and refer to the administration, who may assign responsibility time at home to complete a behavior plan, which would be signed by the parent or guardian. I'm looking forward to working hard and helping make the responsibility system a successful program at the high school. Before I pass it on to Kelly Knight, I want to read something, the reality therapy. Reality therapy states that everyone is responsible for his own behavior, not society, not the environment, not hereditary, not the past, but each person now. It is helping people learn how to take a look at what they are doing and then teaching them to evaluate their behavior and to make a plan to do better. It is not a textbook or a magic solution to problems. It is accepting responsibility for what one does. It's not looking for blame or finding fault or dwelling on the past or feeling sorry for oneself. It is striving to do better within the reality of one's own situation. It is life, it is hard work, it is the way you live with yourself and with others. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Kelly Knight, who will introduce us to the reality therapy DVD and talk about role playing with students and staff.
Good evening. I was privileged enough to have one of my classes do a run through or a simulation of what we think it would look like. My students were excited to do it because it was very similar to what I already do in my classroom. Instead, it gave us another avenue that they could actually do more planning with their own behavior. So they really enjoyed that. What you're going to see in the video are the two levels of the responsibility system. The first level that you're going to see is the level 1. That's where the student is acting inappropriately in the classroom, and I will go over there and direct the student to plan how to behave properly in the classroom. The student makes a successful behavior plan, and so it ends there. Life continues for that student. As you will notice, the class does not stop focus. The teacher does this as the teacher sees the opportunity to go back and review the plan with the student. Then the second level you're going to see is with another student who attempts to do level 1 but is unsuccessful in the classroom with making an appropriate classroom plan. I then ask the student to go to the planning room, and you'll see what happens to that student in the planning room. So with that, we're going to look at the DVD.
We'll see about that.
First, there are some things that hasn't changed, profanity, fighting, all that kind of stuff. The rules stay as they have been in the past.
The student, by making those kinds of choices, has upped the ante considerably right at the get-go.
Right.
This is
We
for-
bypass all of this.
Good. We'll think about things, that's good.
Follow the directions when I give them to you, and you need to stay on task. What I'd like you to do for your plan is for how you can stay on task, please, okay? Are you finished, Kimball? Great. It says that you want your goals to get good grades, to receive credit. That's good. Nice goals to have. You said in order for you to do this, you're going to, 1, stay on task, stop bothering Eric. 2,
Don't bring my materials.
bring your own materials. And the third thing that you're going to do is you're going to use your time wisely. Okay, that sounds great. Hey Brendan, there's no speaking class. Right now we're using this time to study for tomorrow's test. That's 10 minutes. Can you please do that? Wait a minute. I told you to get started on that task. You've done these before. You know how to do these. This is your third plan. Can you please go ahead and fill out for being on task? What you're gonna do this time. Okay, thanks. Brendan, you finished?
Yep.
Is this a plan? Your goals are blah, blah, blah. Yeah, now that you're good. I'm gonna bring you back a new sheet, and I'd like you to redo it and be serious this time, okay?
All right.
There's your,
I don't feel like doing this.
well, Brandon, if you don't do this one, you're gonna have to go see Mr. Hughes.
I guess we agreed. I'll just go to Mr. Hughes.
All right, make sure you take this with you, and let me know that you refuse to do an acceptable plan.
All right. All right, I'm out of here. All right.
How do they make sure he gets the attention?
Give him a pass.
That's how this nice place. Why don't you have a, just sign it right here. And, see the study, Carol. A little agitated, upset, so we'll calm down. And then, we'll call you back up here, okay? Yep. Hi, Brandon. Why don't you tell me what happened today in this night's class?
It's pretty much off task. I was sleeping, and then she came over and woke me up, and she told me to get back on task, so I didn't care, I didn't feel like doing nothing, so I just started playing with my mind.
Okay. You're a little tired today, is that what happened?
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't get enough rest last night. All right. Can you tell me what happened at that point? She sent you over to the planning table?
She handed me this planning slip, and I filled it out. I didn't care what was on it, I don't care.
Okay.
I just put whatever.
You went over to the conference table to work on
Yes.
that? And then what did you do when you went over there?
Filled out a bunch of nothing, and then she came in, she looked at it and asked me if I wanted to get a new slip, and I said, I don't care, I want to do it.
All right, so you were not taking the plan seriously, and she asked you to come down here
Yeah.
and try to complete the plan. Okay. So what were you trying to get out of that situation? What did you hope to accomplish? What do you want out of the class?
I didn't feel like doing nothing. I mean, I was tired and I'm not in the mood today.
Right. Is there a classroom rule that she has about working?
To keep on task. Yeah.
Okay.
She'll give you a few chances, and if you don't go by her chances, she'll send you out.
All right. Did you get what you want out of the situation?
No.
What did you get?
I got nothing.
Okay. What would you like out of that classroom?
I like to learn and just stay in class and not get in trouble.
Okay. Well, what we want to do today is come up with a plan, a specific plan, make it short and sweet. What I want you to do is go back and work on the plan. They're asking you to write some goals for the class. What I want you to do is go back and work on the plan. They're asking you to write some goals for the class, 3 goals. We come up with 3 goals that you can come up with for that class. And then they're asking you about the behavior and speech that you chose that interfered with the learning process, with what, and so on. And then they're asking you to come up with, will this behavior help me get what I want from this class? And then we're coming up with the goals. In order to help me achieve my goal for this class, I plan to, and then write that. So you go back and work on that. If you need any guidance from me, let me know, okay?
All right. Okay.
Brandon? Yeah. You all set? Okay, come on up. Let's take a look at it. Okay. Looks like you put a little more thought into it than
Yeah.
first time. So you're telling me your goals for the class are you want to passing grade, and you want to stay in class, okay, and you want to be successful in class.
Yeah.
All right. And then you also talked down here about the specific goals that you plan on following when you get to class. And you say you're able to pay attention and also stay awake and be prepared and keep on task. Okay? Well, it looks like an acceptable plan. What we'll do is give Mrs. Knight, I'll give the plan to her, and you'll be here for the remainder of the hour for now. And if this plan is acceptable, then we'll be back in her class tomorrow.
All right.
Okay? All right. Go ahead and have a seat.
The learning should not, the behavior of the one individual student should not impede on the learning of the others. And as you could see in the video, the other students were not distracted by it. If the teacher does it in a manner that is quiet and non-threatening, there won't be a power struggle. There's no need for it. You notice when I went up to Kimberla the first time, I told her exactly what the behavior was that was unacceptable to me, and I just let her do her plan. It was acceptable, and we moved on. Brandon, on the other hand, I also went up to him and told him what behavior was unacceptable. He created what he called a plan the first time. It was unacceptable. I even gave him another chance to fix his plan in class before being sent out. And then he didn't want to do it. He chose not to. And in that moment of choice is when he chose to go to the planning room. And that's where the students will learn, and going there is going to just make them look at their own behavior and ask them, what do I really want? We don't ask them enough, what do you want out of that class? What do you really want? When you give students or any person that opportunity to tell you what they want, they will be honest. They might fight you and have a little resistance, as you could tell, but eventually we got the student to tell us what they wanted. And they know how to act. They know how to choose the right behavior. We just have to give them the opportunity to do it. And that's what this program, this behavior program, should do. It's been well documented in other schools. So at this time, we will answer any questions or comments that you guys have.
Madam Chair, yes, I have a question. Actually, I've seen two things. When he was in the planning room, you told him to remain there for the rest of the hour. On the video, it said if the teacher accepts the plan, then they'll return back to class. So when does that happen? Do they come and write a plan and somebody goes back to the teacher to see if they accept it during class time? Isn't that kind of?
That's a good question.
I mean,
no,
that wasn't clear.
We don't want to disrupt the classroom. You know, teaching's going on. So the idea is that the student will stay in the planning room that hour and write the plan, and then I would review it, and if it looks acceptable, then I would turn it into the teacher and put that in their mailbox, his or her mailbox, and then they would get back to me and let me know if that plan is acceptable, and then the student would return to class.
Okay, so then what was on there, was that accurate or was that not accurate? I mean, it made it seem like in the video that they were gonna go read it, accept it, go back, so it's
Yeah,
for the next day?
that was deceiving. It wasn't supposed to be that they go back that particular hour. It's the.
So everybody will stay who's been sent to the room for the remainder of the hour?
Yes, ma'am.
And then go back the next day?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just elaborate a little bit, at the point where they go to the planning room, where they chose to go to the planning room, there's already been several interventions. The teacher has gone through questioning techniques, has given the student an opportunity to change and choose more appropriate behavior.
Right, I was just,
So
it just wasn't
yeah,
clear.
no.
You know, I'm reading that,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, are you going back, are you staying? Or
Right,
are you going
right.
back tomorrow, or what are you doing? So,
Right.
That's
Thanks.
what I want to know.
Mr. McKevin?
I have a few questions. How many schools have tried this program? Do we have any idea around here? Is there any schools that have tried it already?
Well, we talked to principals from several schools. We have documents from Lance Cruz North High School, Redford Thurston High School, East Detroit, and Royal Oak Dondero. And those schools have been using the system of responsibility for several years and report good results as a result of the program.
Okay, second question, for the detention room, or planning room, did you receive any special type training on how to handle those situations? Were you given something?
Yeah, well, I was part of the team that got the more intense training, you know, involved in this whole thing, and of course, several years of experience working with kids too.
But where did you get who was giving you the instruction on how you're going to handle the class or the room? I mean, did you go to some training sessions
Yes.
before all the teachers got involved, or?
Yes.
Last summer, we had 8 staff trained.
Last summer, we had 8 staff trained, so we had a special consultant that come into the high school, and there was 8 of ours and 2 from another school that were also trained, and it was 4 days of all-day training. So then we didn't have the same person follow up with the staff because he was extremely expensive, so we had 2 other people that were doing the whole staff.
Okay, thank you. Now, in looking at your scenarios within the classroom, when you went up to the student the first time, all students were working individually or whatever. What would be the situation if you were at the chalkboard, say you're teaching math and you're instructing a calculus problem? Would the classroom actually then stop? Or how would you handle that student while you were demonstrating a math problem at the board?
Well, each teacher will probably handle it differently according to the way that they do their classroom management. And it also depends on the type of behavior that's being exhibited at the time. In the case of the student who was sleeping or put their head down, I would wait till I finish what I'm doing and then go over. If it's someone who's being verbally disruptive and distracting to a lot of other students, absolutely I would stop for that moment, or I would tell them, I have gone with my own classroom behavior plans in the past and said, you need to go over to the behavior plan folder and pull yourself out one, and they'll go and do it when directed. I've never had a problem just directing them to that spot, or at that moment, just like you would in any class, just say, this is unacceptable behavior. We need to continue. And then once class has been, when the opportunity arises, the opportunity comes about, you can then take care of it. So each teacher will handle it individually. There's no one set way to handle every distraction and everything in the classroom. You have to take it according to the type of behavior that's being exhibited at the time.
Okay, now once the student has missed class, say that day, how long can they stay in the plan room? They leave your class today, they don't do an acceptable plan, they go back to the plan room again, correct, the next day?
Yes, they would the next day.
How many days could they stay in that plan room?
It would not be, if they don't meet an acceptable plan, I don't know, do we have a day frame?
The situation right now is if I look at our current program, if a student gets sent down, as I said before, the piece that's missing is that dialogue about what are you going to do to change your behavior. So if the kid is down there for one day and decides to go back, he just goes back. With this particular program, the student will be down there until he decides or she decides that they're going to change their behavior. If after the first day, in this case here, the kid decided I'm not going to do it, we get the parents involved. The kid's not going to stand in there all year. The kid would be in there until the parent would come in. We'd have an administrative conference with the student. Rarely in all my years have I ever been in a situation where the student hasn't agreed to something with the parent there. It may not last long, or it may happen again. They'll be back down there again, but it'll be a situation in that particular hour. If he chooses not to, the parents are involved. He'll go back to class, but he may end up back again if he doesn't follow directions.
So, I mean, I was just trying to get an idea. If you had, say, 5 days in a row, he couldn't stay there. Okay, that's.
And that could possibly happen with the system that we used to use, where students didn't reflect on their behavior and they just continued and didn't internalize anything. This time we were hoping that by using the questioning techniques and reflecting on their behavior, that we'll see a quicker turnaround than previous.
Going back to, let's, as an example, say he ends up in the plan room for 3 days. Now, the makeup work, is he responsible then to go and get that from the teacher, or does the teacher have to spend some time with the student to catch them up with whatever they've missed in that 3 days? What's your plan for that?
The student would be responsible for making up their own work, just as it would be an absence from any day of class. If you're absent for any reason, school business, or because you chose inappropriate behavior, or because you chose not to come to school that day, or you were sick, you still have to make your own. The student must come to the teacher to make up their own work.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Roscoe, and back to Ms. White. So, does this eliminate the detention room? We're no longer going to use or call it the detention room. We're just going to call it the planning room. So this would be it.
That would be right.
Ms. White.
Question or comment, differences or versus similarities to what they use at the elementary level, the intervention room, and the planning room, I guess, at the high school level? Or is it similar, or because it's the same, I guess, in the elementary, they reflect on their behavior, what they've done, they're sorry, kind of write a plan, so.
It's very similar to the way many of the elementaries use their intervention rooms, where they have the reflective piece. In the system that we were in previously, there wasn't reflection, no written reflection. So this is bringing that back in. And it's using things that have worked at other high schools.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just briefly, I can't remember, I may have touched on this. You're going to introduce this to the student body this year for the first time? other than your classroom?
During the first week back. Staff have all been trained on it.
Already, so but we're going to use Tuesday afternoon to review some things again, and part of that review is to how we're going to present it to the kids, and we're going to actually not present it to the kids until after Labor Day, because still a lot of kids are coming in through that time. So we'll be presenting it to the kids on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of the second week back. So, and part of that, to go back to your original question before, is once the students become more understanding of this whole process, it actually will move faster. If you mentioned the teacher at the board doing something and all of a sudden there's a disruptive behavior, that has to, today, that stops now. The teacher has to write up a referral. This actually will be a little faster because the students, once they're aware of what the process is, it's a matter of my getting a form and having the kids do what he has to do and keeping him in class as opposed to sending him out. Again, the purpose of this whole thing is, obviously the umbrella is to increase achievement, but it's also try to do everything we can do is to reduce number of suspensions and referrals across the board. We're also hopefully going to be bringing in as far as the tardies and attendance as well, as far as making those kinds of choices.
You mentioned 3 days, so will you do it all like say the first hour of each day or something so that the same teacher handles the same students for all 3 days and breaking them in on this program? We're
actually getting together Wednesday to plan the week, to figure out what we're going to do exactly, but it's school-wide. Yeah.
But I was just wondering, if you do it school-wide, you're going to do it, say, 3 days to get them, are you always going to use the same?
No, we're looking at probably abbreviated schedule, so it'll be a certain time of the day, but the classes will be a little shorter, so they'll all get their 6 hours, but it'll be a pocket of time that we use for the training.
Okay.
Dan, just for the training team had Chuck and had 4 days of intensive training, Rhonda, et cetera. How many hours did the teachers have during the course of the year?
15 hours overall. We use half days over the course of the semester.
Up to 15 hours, so
Yeah.
every teacher's had a lot of time in training and reflection. And you plan to roll it out with the parents we had talked about?
Well, I have a letter I'm going to send out, but I didn't want to send the letter out until I at least had the opportunity to present it to the board. So the letter will be going out tomorrow with another some more other information, not related to it, but it'll go out to everybody.
And you had talked about working with the athletic team?
We're going to, as I said, Ron has already had an opportunity to meet with, we have a student leadership camp we do every summer, and there's 50 kids there that are representative of each class. She met with them already, and Mark Woodson and I and Doug and Don are meeting with the class officers and all athletes once a month to have them take more of a active role in regards to modeling appropriate behavior and taking a leadership role from peer to peer.
Thanks.
Madam Chairman, it just made me think of another question. The teacher has the final approval on the behavior plan. So even though he's in the plan room, he approves of what the student has done. If it goes back to the teacher and the teacher doesn't like it, he could go back to have to redo it again.
He could, yes, but in fact, we talked about that, and the odds of that are pretty rare because if it actually gets approved by the facilitator, I can't imagine a situation where the teacher's not going to accept it, but that's a possibility it could happen.
Okay. Ms. Pryor?
Madam Chair, if I can, please. My question may be for Mr. Hughes, actually. If you get a student, you're asking them to write out their goals. If you get a student in there and one of their goals is to be removed from that teacher's classroom, are you going to be acting on that? Do you get the teacher involved, the counselor involved? Who gets involved with trying to, because that's a possibility. You're asking them what they want, and that may be...
Right, if they're going to continue to hold firm to that line, that they're not, going to be accepting an acceptable plan, then we'd have to choose other, avenues of, such as getting with school counselor and, parent and administrators, all those other options that I talked about earlier in the presentation.
Mr. Kuderich?
Yes, I got a question for you, Mr. Hughes. Say you got a student that's disruptive in one class, first hour, and maybe next week he's disruptive in or third hour, and so on throughout. How many times are you going to see this before we go to the next step? Maybe it's sleeping today, or maybe it's talking, or whatever. In class to be disruptive. Just enough to be annoying to the teacher where they've got to take time. Where's the breaking point here?
I don't think we have anything concretely set in stone as far as when that would be, so I don't know. Dan, would you want to speak to this?
It varies depending on the school. In some of the, for example, in the case of Lons Cruz North, they have the 3-strike policy, basically 3 trips down to the responsibility room, and you have a planning day at home. That's a requirement in their program. We haven't set that in stone yet because the program is new. We want to kind of take a look at it and be flexible at this point. But certainly, we understand that concern. We want to be ready to deal with it.
I'm just looking at it, you get some students that, they go, well, I can get out of this class, I got a test, or I got this, or I want to get a break. I mean, they need to know where the limit is,
Right.
where they know that the next step's going to be followed.
And one of the things that we did, as Mr. Hurst already alluded to, for example, the zero tolerance part of our discipline policy is still on the books. We've left it there. We've also, in the student code of conduct, left the sequence for disciplinary action in there, which is something that we've had for years, and it provides a sequential step, starting with 1 trip to the responsibility room, and then on step 7 ending in a contract, a behavior plan, and a contract with parents and teacher and school administration. So,
okay.
I just want to say also, in addition to what was previously said, if there is a student, like you mentioned, who could possibly trying to abuse the system, when they come down to the planning room, it's understood that they are still responsible for whatever work they're missing, and those natural consequences will fall into place. They're missing out, and they'll be losing points and all sorts of things. But also, if you take a look at your flow chart on page 3, where it says possible interventions, if Chuck sees that someone is potentially abusing the situation, then he can refer that person to guidance or to the school social worker, and then we'll work with that person to find out, what's truly going on with that kid. What exactly are they trying to avoid, and see how we can assist them to make better choices using their goals. So it's internally motivated. We're trying to always go back to the student's internal motivation.
Just one more thing to add, a lot of the, from the other schools, the information we got from the other schools reflect, some real positively in regards to cutting down a lot on disruptive and acting out behaviors, where kids are doing a lot better job, in regards to that, and spending a lot more time in class as opposed to, what happened before they started that program.
What is your plan for a student? You send a student down. Do you have a system set up where at the end of each day or something that the teachers are notified who made it to the room? You can give a pass to a student and he can disappear in a hurry. So I'm just wondering, how do you make sure that first day he's been there?
I'm sure that it'll be handled the same way we currently do it. Anytime we send anyone down to the intervention room, we make a phone call to the intervention if we suspect that they may not be down there. I regularly, anytime I send a student, I call and just say, hey, you need to expect so-and-so down in the IR room.
I didn't know if you had a set pattern or something where he maybe would put out a list at the end of each day saying, here's who was
and just
in the
like
plan
we,
room.
And just like we currently have, after they've been seen by Chuck, we get what happened in the IR room, just like we'll have the student's plan now in our box at the end of the day. So there'll be that day, and I can always call Chuck during my prep or when it's convenient for me at the end of the day, say, hey, how'd it go? Do you have the plan? I'll come down and get it. I'm sure that people doing that too.
Any other questions? I've got one. Dan, I think you did touch on this. We still have zero tolerance, so it's not all behavior that gets to do this plan, so we still, I guess the severe behavior, we still treat as zero tolerance.
Right.
Okay.
Specifically profanity.
Profanity, fighting, drugs, weapons, any of that kind of stuff would all still be the same.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, very good.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh,
Mr. Ruthier, cafeteria bid.
Thank you. Presented to the Board of Education for their review and approval this evening. As you know, the district solicited bids for food service management company. There was a pre-bid meeting that I held with people that were interested. Just so you know, the state of Michigan requires that we submit the offer to bid to acceptable bidders. They provide us, the state provides us with the list of who those folks are. There are 12 bidders that are approved by the state. The solicitation or the RFP was made available to those folks, and a pre-bid meeting was held August the 5th. The actual bid was held in this office last Thursday on the 19th, and the results of that bid is presented to you this evening. Chartwell Company, which is someone that would be new to Romulus, was the apparent low bidder. Chartwell is the largest food management company in the state of Michigan. I did supply the Board of Education with the client list, so you could see that they're just all over the state of Michigan and do a lot of business here. I have no reason to think that they wouldn't be successful here. Again, as with the contract of last year, this is a one-year deal with an option to renew for up to 5 years. I do have a little prospectus on who the area and district managers are. Mr. Clark and I will meet with assuming acceptance by the board, we'll meet with the Chartwell people tomorrow at 10:30. We've prearranged a meeting. As you know, with the start of school on the 1st, we need to move expeditiously to get this in place and to bring the people on board, along with our regular staff folks, and get the two acquainted and the operation of the food service started. Just for the benefit of you folks, you haven't seen the financial statements, but we did, the food service operation last year did have a profit, which was very good, just so you know that, and I would suspect that we would probably do well this new school year. We have not, and we have no intention on raising the lunch prices or the breakfast, so you know that already. We've already committed to that, and we have not had a price increase in lunches in a number of years. So just with that information and the recommendation of the board to endorse one of these companies is what we're seeking this evening.
Madam Chairman, if I had a question. If we go with any of the other companies, there would be a new service person. If we went with Chartwell's or Aramark as the two other bidders, currently we had Sodexo, the service manager would be somebody new then. It wouldn't be the lady that was hired in May or June or whatever that Sodexo had hired. Is that correct?
No. If you went, in all likelihood, if you chose Sodexo, you would probably, in all likelihood, have the same team of players that you had last year.
But if we went with one of the others, it would be different.
I cannot speak for Aramark. I will share with you that at the pre-bid, Ms. Gross, who was in the management team 2 years ago with Aramark, was in attendance. She's in Monroe, and I would suspect that she would come back, but there's no commitment on their part to tell us who they would or would not bring.
Okay. The only other comment I had, I did talk with superintendent of schools from Whiteford Agricultural. They're one of the ones that has it. They've had it for a few years with Chartwell's, and he told me Milan has just added them, and he also talked to the superintendent from Mount Pleasant, and he didn't have anything negative at all about them, and they were the low bid. So that was the only other information I had.
We need a motion.
May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that we go with the low bid of 1.1325 per meal with Chartwell's.
I'll support that.
Are there any questions? Any questions?
It's a one-year deal, renewable up to 5 years.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to make that comment, that it was a one-year deal? 'Cause, I mean, lately, we've kind of been going into uncharted waters, even though some of the companies have been around for a long time. And we're committed to doing, you know, the one-year deal, but if it doesn't work out, then we'll move on to the next company.
And
So-
they would, excuse me, they would come back, we would bring them back in here and discuss this with them? Is that how we would do it after 1 year?
Well, we would do it, it's a one-year contract that expires June 30th, so we would go in advance of that.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Because we're really
If-
behind, when we do it this late or this early in the year. Actually, we need to move earlier on, perhaps in May or so.
Yeah.
Chartwell does routinely survey their principals and people that they service. We really did have a very good survey instrument that was used last year at the request of the board. And we will make sure, and it was my intent at the pre-bid to bring this to the attention of all the bidders, that a survey would be required and brought back for the Board of Education's review.
Madam Chairman, I did have another question. We had all the problem last year with
At the beginning of the
10
year.
entrees or whatever, and, you know, we still had the same number of workers. This company, what is their proposal as far as entrees and that type of thing?
We haven't discussed that.
Oh,
But
okay.
knowing, you know, hindsight's 20/20, and realizing that there could be some issues with the number of offerings, but keep also in mind that with the variety comes the flexibility and choices for students. This does, you know, our participation last year was up. And it's not just because of the quality of the food, it could very well have been because there was different offerings available. But we will seriously look at the number of offerings available to make sure that doesn't impede the process, but helps smooth and facilitate the operation.
I just wanted to make a comment, because last year we did get off to a rocky start, but by the end of the year, and when we got the surveys back, they were all favorable, so, you know.
Yeah,
food,
and
you know,
if they're going
surveys.
to insist upon all these entrees, can they get more help in the cafeteria? You can't expect 10 entrees with only 2 workers in one cafeteria. I don't think it's fair. I don't think our workers think it's fair either. I couldn't believe they were doing it. But could you, work on that with this company?
We will seriously look at their management style.
Okay.
You know, what their menus look like, how they go through their training, how it's organized. They have to publish for us the calendar or a daily meal presentation for the first month, and they have. That's a part of the bid requirement, to make sure that there's some continuity with the previous year. So we kind of already know what their offerings are going to be. But Ms. Lanasi, we will make sure that everything is manageable, that it's not overbearing. But you have to keep in mind when you start offering food, the labor is there, whether you do 1 entree or 3 entrees. It's just how you manage the labor and how manageable is it. So you're already, you're going to spend time. It's just how you allocate the time. So, but we will make a very conscious effort to make sure that students are satisfied, because that's first, and secondly, that the operation is a smooth and effective operation without, we had a lot of logistical problems last year that we should not have had. And by that I mean people were running out of things that shouldn't have happened. And even when they were asked, they still ran out. So there was a logistical glitch in the system that should have worked itself out and been resolved very early on, and it literally took a few months to do, and that's not acceptable. And we'll make sure that that doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cooterite.
Yes, just to comment on your statement there, Mr. Ruthier. I understand that, allocation of time for, when preparing meals, and, like you said, if you got 1 entree or 3, depends on how you manage it. But also, it also depends if you're cooking for 10 or 100. It's going to take you longer to cook. So I think the people in the kitchen need to have, there's gotta be some help in there, because, I mean, the quality, you can have a good product, but your quality will fall if you don't have enough people to prepare it correctly. And when you're cooking for larger numbers, it does take
I understand.
Any other questions? It's a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. The next one is, the next agenda item is really interesting thing that's developed over just the last few weeks. Mr. Mushroom and Mr. Clark and Mr. Ruthier and I've worked on this, and it creates an opportunity for us to pick up some equivalencies. We have had a shared time situation with St. Aloysius for a number of years, where we had a teacher who worked for the Romulus schools, but was full-time at the St. Aloysius school, and in return for that, we received a number of equivalencies, which generates revenue to us to cover the costs and so forth. We've had interaction with both St. Anthony's and St. Stephen's, St. Anthony's and Van Buren schools, St. Stephen's and the New Boston schools. The superintendents in both of these districts have agreed to permit Romulus to enter their districts and provide the staff to do these shared time programs for the schools. And it'd be generally, I think it's art, music, potentially phys ed, and computers. So we're asking today, we need to have a motion to provide the opportunity for us to work out the final details. And we have contracts that have been drawn up by our attorneys to put this programs into effect. A couple of these schools are opening in the next couple of days, so we want to get at this right away. There'll be an opportunity for us to, since we'll be hiring new young staff for these positions, there'll be the opportunity for us to generate cash to cover the total cost of our part of the program, and there will be some cash that comes back to the school district for running the programs. I'd recommend that we have a motion to the effect that the Romulus Board will enter agreement with St. Anthony's and another agreement with St. Stephen's to be involved in their shared time programs as earlier described.
I was just gonna make one comment. We have a number of Romulus students at each one of those schools. Some of the students that left St. Aloysius are at St. Anthony's and at St. Stephen's. Hopefully, if we do a good job here, you're gonna get those students when they finish 8th grade at those schools.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Okay, Joel, did I hear you say that we have to hire more teachers for these particular?
Yes.
That's what I thought I heard you say.
Yes, we will hire a teacher. The teacher will be over at each one of these schools full-time. We're talking about the equivalencies of 30 to 50 children, full-time equivalencies from each of these schools. This is a considerable undertaking. It's a good opportunity for the Romulus schools.
Yeah, we would get the, okay, I'll make the motion of what you said. If you want to repeat that motion.
We're going to enter into an agreement separately with each of these facilities, St. Anthony's and St. Stephen's, to provide the shared time programs in their schools for art, music, phys ed, and computers, or some such combination as is worked out with each of those districts, each of those private schools.
And this would be a profit maker for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did somebody make a motion?
Yeah.
We have somebody second?
I'll second.
Okay. Now, are there any questions? Ms. Frey, did you have a question?
How many teachers per school are we hiring? And
One.
So it's one teacher per school, so 2 teachers,
Yeah.
one at each school. And how many we're gonna hire one teacher to teach band, art, computers and gym?
Computers, art, and then computers and phys ed, one of the others.
We've done this before. We have experience with it. We did it for a number of years with St. Aloysius, and we talked about, well, you gotta find just the right person. talking elementary again, and
Okay,
I don't think,
are these people gonna be part of our union?
Yes.
So then, eventually, if something were to happen again, like what happened at St. L's, we would have to bring them back here to work,
Yes.
right?
yes. Eventually is the key, however. This is not, we're not doing this with the idea that it's gonna
Well,
chase the first year. We're
exactly,
gonna-
no.
It's gonna be a long-term arrangement, and the opportunities it brings to Romulus are very positive. We're in a very precarious financial situation as we enter this next year, and this is another effort to help us maintain our program within Romulus, as well as give the service to the students at St. Anthony's and St. Stephen's.
One more question, Madam Chair, if I can, and we hope to gain students here in our district by doing this?
That is an incidental effect that may occur down the line. It's not gonna be immediate.
Ms. White?
Madam Chair, I think probably the reason we had a lot of questions, just because in the rationale, it was very vague, so we didn't understand
I understand that.
the details of it. So that's why we're asking, and it's our first time hearing it and not understanding.
There's no problem with that. We want to answer all of your questions. Each one of these arrangements will be different. I mean, each school and each administration you're working with are different people, but they've come to us and asked us. We weren't out shopping or doing something. They came to us, they asked us, and we've got the cooperation by someone who wants us to serve them. They know we're good at it. We're good at a lot of things. We're into kind of a whole new arena here, but it's something we're good at, and we will do a good job for them, and it'll work out well for us as well.
Ms. Roscoe?
Madam Chair, now if we're gonna have one teacher at each school, are they gonna go back and forth
Nope.
between those two schools? So you're
One-
gonna have to clarify it, cause it sounded like when Ed
There will
spoke.
be one person at St. Stephen's in an arrangement, there'll be another person at St. Anthony's in another arrangement.
And they would teach everything,
They'll
all.
spend their whole day there, yes.
Any other questions?
I just have one more question, I'm sorry. Who would these people report to and which union? They would be in our teachers' union?
Yes. They report to their principal in cooperation with us and through our personnel department. They'll be working for the principal of the school that they're assigned to.
Okay.
And we're gonna have positive relationships with these folks, which then leads to the possibility of what Ken was talking about. When these kids are finished with the 6th grade or the 8th grade, depending on the longevity in that particular school.
Both schools
we'd
end at
be
the 8th
bringing
grade.
them back. We've got a lot of kids that wanna come to Romulus schools, and this is another way to smooth that transition.
Right.
Any additional questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
We've come to the part where we have communications and expressions from the public, and we have a Miss Redmond. If she would come forward, please. There should be a mic, hopefully, out there
Where is
for
the
you.
mic?
It's right here.
Oh, it's right here.
And you stand in that little square for me, please, and just give your address, and you have 3 minutes to address the board.
Good afternoon, my name is Linda Redmond, and I'm the head cook at the high school, and I live at 30259 Spank Court in Romulus. I have a couple of quick questions concerning the cafeteria department. I'd like to know this company, when will they be able to start? And, are they gonna be ready for the first day of lunch? And what happens if they're not? And,
The answer needs to be tomorrow, because they're meeting there
Tomorrow,
tomorrow,
yes.
and the answer needs to be yes.
okay. And the other question, is there an increase in the amount of kids that'll be attending alternative time?
Yes, likely there will be,
There likely will be,
hopefully.
hopefully.
We've made provision to allow for that,
Okay,
classroom-wise, but we have to wait to see how the numbers materialize.
okay. And you've done a lot of research on this company and how they are able to work with the people cafeteria they had in
As I stated previously, they're the largest food management company in the state of Michigan.
Michigan. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Mr. Carr?
I items of interest are self-explanatory, I believe. We will need executive session tonight for just a few moments. One other thing I'd like to bring up also, just before I go, that is the opening day with teachers will be Monday, or with staff will be Monday, August 30th at 8 a.m. at the high school. Monday, 30th at 8 a.m. will be our opening meeting with with the staff.
Questions and concerns of board members?
Madam Chairman, in reading the PA 227 paper we got, they are really stressing in here that the board come up with a policy about handling students of employees. I saw in here it says, you know, that they're encouraging school boards to make a policy on how we want to handle this. Are we going to do something in the future? Is basically
I've
my
already
question.
written a letter to our entire staff inviting staff members to bring their children to the Romulus schools. I think the law will be our policy.
You know, I
I
did.
don't think there's
A separate policy?
No.
I don't think there's a need for a separate policy. We're
Yeah,
abide
it's-
by the law.
It's just that I read in here now, I can't find it real quick. But I read somewhere on it, or I was at a meeting or something, where they were just stressing that each board maybe have or pass the policy as to how they want to handle it.
I would hope you'd let us handle it administratively, and we would
I'm
enroll
just-
kids as they appear. Every one of them is valuable to us, and it's a legal thing and the right thing to do in terms of the law as it stands now.
Yeah, it's money.
I think we just.
Yeah, well, I have no problem with it. I just wondered if we wanted to have something.
As we get into it further, and as we look at it and see what other districts are doing, we can certainly consider that.
And I guess my other comment was, the district losing the student has no say in it.
This can work both ways. There
Yeah.
can be folks that
Yeah.
work in other school districts whose children are gonna go somewhere else as well, so.
Yeah, no, I know that, but I mean, it was just kind of funny the way they wrote it, that the losing school has no choice, you know.
That's the way it is in schools of choice.
Yeah.
Any other comments, concerns? Just to let board members know, school is in session when we meet, our next meeting, so casual dress is over. Okay? That's it. Executive session, may I have roll call, please? I need a
you gotta
motion
have your
first. I
motion.
need a motion first.
Would like to make a motion that we convene into executive session.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kudrick?
Yes.
Ms. Lassie?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. McKevich?
Yes.
Ms. Breyer?
Yes.
Ms. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Roscoe, yes.
I
Reconvene,
make a
please.
motion to reconvene into regular session.
I second it.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kudrick?
Yes.
Ms. Lassie?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. McKevich?
Yes.
Ms. Breyer?
Yes.
Ms. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Roscoe, yes.
I make the motion to adjourn.
I support it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Did you want to read, Joe?
Thank you all very much.